What's up guys, my name is Ace, and it's been a little while. I wanted to touch base with Splitgate 2, because we have seen some updates since the last time I've talked about this game. We've also seen a decline in the player base, just based on Steam charts at least, which isn't looking too good, and we've got some developer updates as well. So I just wanted to touch base with this and share my thoughts on what's going on with Splitgate 2 at the moment. And let's first start this off with some of the things that have come recently that you guys may have missed if you haven't played Splitgate 2 recently. The first thing is they added camo challenges, so you can actually grind camos now on guns. And I think that's great. I'm glad they got on top of that one fairly quickly. Would have been nice to be there right at launch, but they did add it shortly after. And another big thing is Arena Ranked is also active, although there are a lot of issues surrounding that, and a lot of room for improvement as well. And those are really the main fairly new elements with Splitgate 2. Now let's talk a little bit about the fact that it appears Splitgate 2 is struggling, especially if we're looking at Steam player counts, which I just want to point out, just like when this discussion comes up with Call of Duty, Steam isn't everything, and I'm sure there's quite a few people on console as well that are obviously not factored into these Steam charts, since there's not a whole lot of competition in the FPS space on console at the moment. So I'm sure there's more players playing on console, but at the very least, I think these Steam charts give us an indication of the general player trends, and unfortunately, it's trending downward fairly quickly. On top of this, just as another potential indicator here of Splitgate not doing too well, something I've noticed as a content creator is there's very little viewer interest in Splitgate 2. Whether that be on streams or YouTube videos, it really just doesn't seem to be appealing to the wide audience that I think they were hoping to capture when they initially launched. And that is very unfortunate. It's actually one of the reasons I haven't been playing very much, and obviously I haven't been posting any videos on this, even though I planned on doing gun guides for this. It was quite simply a case of not enough interest for me to justify putting as much time and effort that would be required to make those videos if they're just going to actively harm my channel, because there's only a small group of dedicated players that would be interested in that. So based on what we're seeing here, it's pretty clear that Splitgate 2 is not thriving at the very least. That's not to say that it's completely dead at this point. There are still people playing. You can still find games, of course. But now I wanted to share at least my thoughts on why I think this is the case and why I think this game has been struggling a little bit. And to be clear, I don't think there's like one primary reason or anything. There is a bit of a list here. Some of these I think have a much bigger impact than others though. And honestly, I think one of the primary reasons that this just isn't appealing to a very wide audience is the simple fact that the mechanical skill gap in Splitgate 2 is fairly high. And therefore, it's very hard for them to break into that massive group of very casual FPS players that have many other games that are available to them that cater heavily to them. And what I mean by the high mechanical skill gap of this is primarily 3D movement, so advanced movement, combined with quite a high time to kill, or a slow time to kill, relative to many other games on the market at least. And this just requires a lot of movement and tracking skills combined. And then layering on top of that, we have the portal skill gap, which I think is very overwhelming for a lot of the more casual audience that is barely able to just keep up with the aiming and shooting part of the game, let alone the portals on top of it. So I do think that's one of the big reasons that this game didn't absolutely blow up and like take over the FPS scene, for instance. And to be clear, that's fine. Not every game should be trying to do that. There's definitely a place for more niche games that don't appeal to that really wide audience, and I think it's good to have games like that. However, I do feel Splitgate 2 is lacking in several other areas. One of the big things that I actually made a video on a little while back is it just felt like the game was incomplete at launch. It still felt like it should be in a beta state when it first launched. And even now, there are still several things that feel like they're just missing from the game, and they should absolutely be there. One of the big ones is the ability to see your ping in-game. It still blows my mind that we can't see that, and now that the player count has dwindled, I think it's even less likely we're going to see that, because I think the matchmaking is going to have to be stretching a little bit farther to find a game with fewer people playing, and therefore you're more likely to be seeing a higher ping, and they don't want to see you seeing a higher ping because then you're more likely to leave games, and that creates a bunch of issues. So I think maybe a bit of a tricky situation now, but at the end of the day, hiding that doesn't do any good for the players. You should be able to see what your ping is in an online FPS game. Next up, another thing that has irked me since the launch of Splitgate 2 is the fact that we can't select individual quick play modes, or at the very least deselect some of the modes that we don't want to play. Instead, we're just stuck with playing the arena mosh pit, and you might get a game mode you like, you might get a game mode you dislike, and you just kind of have to roll with it. Or you just back out of the game, which is another big issue with this game in my eyes, is the fact that people seem to be very willing to back out of games, and then they just fill those spots with bots. And while the bots aren't totally useless in this game, they will actually get some kills here or there. They're also just not going to be a proper replacement for a real player. And that's one big thing I've noticed with my playtime is I've just felt a lot of the times I feel like I'm just wasting my time finishing out matches because either it's me stuck trying to carry 2 or 3 bots, or I'm on the other end of that and I've still got all players on my team and there's 2 or 3 bots on the enemy team combined with a real player or 2. And at that point, we know the game's essentially over and we're just fighting against bots when I didn't really sign up to be fighting against bots in a public match. I'm there to play and compete against real people. So I don't know how big of a reason that is for many people, but I know for myself and my own personal enjoyment of the game, that is something that has really been getting to me with Splitgate 2. And I do think there needs to be some player infill. I know there are downsides that come with infilling players into games in progress, because yeah, it's also frustrating when you search for a match and it puts you into a game in progress where you're so far behind that there's no chance of coming back. That's not fun either, but perhaps make like a window at least where it's early enough in the game and close enough of a game where there's at least potential for comeback, and we should be infilling players into those matches to help prevent those situations where, like, basically from the first minute of the game, you're already stuck with a bot on your team, so you're basically down a player already at that point. And especially with some of the modes being round-based, they tend to last a fairly long time. That can just feel like a massive waste of time sticking in that game, which I think just perpetuates the issue because then people see, oh, I've already got a bot on my team, I might as well leave. Now their teammates are stuck with 2 bots on the team, and then another guy leaves, and now it's 3 bots on a team. And maybe that wouldn't be happening if they were infilling real players, at least early on in matches. Now on top of this, referring to the arena mode, I know something that is fairly controversial in the community. I kind of keep tabs on things and some of the conversations that are going on at least. It seems like a lot of the really hardcore Splitgate 1 fans are very unhappy with the class system where you have loadouts and abilities and stuff rather than a more pure arena style shooter where you spawn in, everybody's on a level playing field, and you basically just pick your gun and then there's weapon pickups around the map as well. So I think that has been fairly polarizing and that may have pushed some people away. I think the class system has also attracted a lot of players that otherwise wouldn't have been attracted to the game. So I don't know if that's really a wash or what the situation is there, but it is a big point that's often brought up, and therefore I think it's worth at least mentioning in today's video. After that, something else that a lot of people seem to be pointing to when it comes to Splitgate 2's apparent decline, although I don't know if this really factors in too much with people leaving the game because of the gameplay, because this is separate from the gameplay, but this is their pricing model in the store. And while yes, you're not gaining any competitive advantage or anything from the store items, so you don't need to be spending money on the store, and it is of course a free-to-play game, so they've got to be making their money somehow. At the end of the day, the prices are just way too high in my opinion for what you're getting, and for what the game is as well. And I do think that has left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths at the very least. Again, I don't know if this is really contributing to many people like quitting the game entirely or anything, but it's definitely not an area that's helping their image by any means. After that, I have perhaps a bit of a controversial opinion here. I know a lot of people agree, but other people may disagree with that, and that's totally fine. I do think for Splitgate 2, Battle Royale was a mistake, or at least Battle Royale at launch and as a huge focus of their launch presentation was a mistake. And don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed Battle Royale in this game. I think it is fun to play, but I also don't think that's the thing that makes Splitgate 2 special. Arena is what's really special about Splitgate 2. That is the core game that I feel they should really have been focusing on rather than just another Battle Royale thrown in the pile with a bit of a twist to it. Because I don't think Splitgate 2's future is in Battle Royale, it's in their arena style modes. And while pushing that at launch probably got a lot of people to come in and check out the Battle Royale that otherwise wouldn't have been interested in arena modes, I think it's pretty difficult to convert Battle Royale players into arena players. And like I said, I think arena is really the future of Splitgate 2, so at that point you're attracting all of these players that aren't really going to be converted to the main focus of your game, especially when it hasn't really had any time to establish itself properly first. And as much as I did have some fun with the Battle Royale in this game, I don't think it has enough legs to compete properly with the big players out there in the Battle Royale scene, like Warzone for instance. And I do think that has hurt the game to a degree. I think it would have been much better to launch with just arena modes, really just focus heavily on that and fostering a good community within that. And then maybe down the road, once the game's a bit more established, you launch the Battle Royale, which offers something new and exciting for the players that have been playing Splitgate 2. And then at that point, you have the potential to attract some new players as well to the game. And they'd maybe be a bit more likely to convert into arena if it's already a heavily established mode that has worked out all the kinks and plays really well. Now, of course, that's just my opinion on that. I think it's totally fine if you disagree, but I definitely think Battle Royale has hurt them in the long run. And then one final thing that I wanted to talk about here that I think hurt Splitgate 2 early on was the overall developer attitude and approach with the launch. where the CEO did have a very like politically charged hat. I know that upset a lot of people and pushed them away. But even outside of the hat situation, I think it was the general attitude going into that presentation. I know they were trying to be big and loud and really stand out from the crowd. I get what they were going for, but I think that did backfire in a lot of ways, especially because it really seemed like a lot of that presentation was taking shots at the more established games in the FPS market, rather than just focusing on themselves and showing off what they have to offer and how what they're offering is great. And especially seeing the state that the game launched in, I think this attitude really backfired on them. If you are going to take that approach where you're taking shots at others that are established in the community, you better absolutely nail it, and you better be doing so many things way better than those existing games that you're taking shots at. And Splitgate 2 just doesn't do that. And I don't think the game is bad by any means. It's just not good enough to be coming into the scene like that and talking down to their competitors that are far more established and have games that have all of the features that you would expect, unlike Splitgate 2, combined with things like the fact that their store pricing model is even worse than Call of Duty's, for instance, and Call of Duty gets a lot of criticism for how expensive their bundles and things are, then of course that approach is going to backfire on you. So I think a much more humble approach where they would have just focused on what they're doing and all of the features of their game and what they're really proud of with their game, what makes their game great in their eyes, without comparing or talking down to competitors, that would have been a much better approach in my eyes with Splitgate 2. And overall, I think those are the primary issues that I think Splitgate 2 has been struggling with. Like I said, there's a variety of reasons there. I think some have had a bigger impact than others, of course. But now let's talk a little bit about what's changing. One thing I do like is the developers have been a lot more humble and direct and clearly in touch with what the community is talking about, at least. They have released some videos and community updates, for instance, that are directly addressing much of the feedback and criticism. And I think that's great. They recently addressed their challenge system. It is pretty broken right now. It actually has been one of the biggest issues they've been having with the game on a technical level. And they owned up to that, and they are rewriting the entire system essentially from scratch to make sure that it's running smoothly. They've also been doing weapon balancing, ability balancing. They've talked about a bunch of ranked improvements that are coming. And again, they've owned up to the fact that ranked is not in a good place. And there are some clear issues with ranked, and they're working on that. And that's the type of communication gamers tend to love to see, where the developers take accountability for the things that are broken or not working properly or not balanced properly, and they give a path forward and talk about the specific steps they're going to be taking to solve those. So post-launch, it seems like they really have been getting things together a lot better there, and I hope to see a lot more of that going forward because I don't want Splitgate 2 to die off. I want this game to be successful long-term. Again, I don't think it's ever really going to appeal to the masses or anything, but I hope it's at least able to maintain a solid core player base long-term, and maybe even improve enough over time to turn some things around and grow a player base as things get better. Of course, time will tell on all of this. I'm still going to be keeping up with Splitgate 2. I'm still going to be hopping in from time to time as well to play it. Admittedly, I really just haven't had time in my schedule to play it lately, especially when it's hard to justify making content on it when there's not a whole lot of viewer interest in content on it. But this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about Splitgate 2 now that it's been out for a little while? And now that we've seen some updates and improvements, as well as a dwindling player count. Are you guys still playing Splitgate 2? Have you played it before but you fell off? And if so, why did you stop playing Splitgate 2? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.